My adult daughter surprised me with a sealed brand new tablet on my 69th birthday, and I carried it over to my grandson Lucas' apartment because I barely knew how to turn the thing on, and he works in digital forensics for a telecom firm. He studied it silently for a few minutes, then his hands stopped and the color drained from his face. He looked at me and said softly, "Grandpa, we have a serious problem. This device was compromised before it ever left the box. There is advanced tracking software on it." I laughed at first because it sounded impossible. It came from my daughter after all, but less than 2 weeks later, when the truth finally surfaced, I understood that the tablet had never been a gift. It was leverage, a tool meant to strip me of control, money and dignity. If this story sounds familiar, remember to stay aware, because sometimes the deepest betrayals come wrapped in bright paper and smiles. Some names and details here are changed, but the warning is real. I turned 69 on a cold November Sunday. The maples in upstate New York already bare and rattling in the wind. I woke alone in the farmhouse I bought decades ago, the same way I had every morning since my wife Helen passed 5 years earlier. The kettle clicked on at 6:30 and I shuffled into the kitchen wearing an old Syracuse University hoodie. Helen used to tease me about saying it made me look like a tired substitute teacher, which was close enough. After 35 years teaching civics, my phone stayed quiet. Birthdays stop being events at this age. They become quiet markers that you are still here. Around midday the knock came. My daughter Laura stood on the porch holding a gift bag with a blue ribbon. She hugged me carefully, the way she has since she started seeing that new boyfriend. "Happy birthday, Dad. I wanted to get you something useful this year." Inside was an expensive tablet still wrapped. I told her it was too much. She smiled and said, "You deserve it now. You can manage bills, read the news, video, call me, everything right." There something loosened in my chest. She remembered me after the funeral, after the distance, after the missed calls. She stayed for soup, asked about my blood pressure, my sleep, my medications. The question sounded caring but rehearsed, like notes she had studied. After she left I spent hours poking at the screen, amazed and a little proud that I could still learn new things. That night I plugged it in, feeling closer to her than I had in years, unaware I had just invited a stranger into my home. The next week I drove to Lucas' place in Albany. He is my late son Andrew. Boy, sharp, quiet, always watching. He poured coffee, took the tablet and began setting it up, then froze. "Grandpa, who gave this to you?" "Your mom," I said. "Sealed in the box." He shook his head and told me someone had installed enterprise-level spyware, full access camera, microphone, keystrokes, location, everything. My stomach dropped. I argued, denial rising, because no father wants to believe that, but Lucas' voice never wavered. "We called law enforcement." The next morning a federal investigator confirmed that the device had been deliberately altered to monitor me, my finances, my movements, my conversations. She asked who stood to benefit. I told her about the house, my pension, the insurance policy meant for both children, evenly split. She nodded gently and said in her experience this rarely starts without an endgame. She told me not to confront anyone yet, to act normal. I drove home numb, sitting in the driveway staring at the porch. Helen painted herself, my daughter, the child who once made me birthday cards with crooked letters, had chosen to watch me like a suspect. That night I barely slept, listening to the house settle, wondering when love had turned into surveillance, and realizing too late that some gifts are not meant to be opened, they are meant to be escaped from. I lay awake in the darkness, staring up at the ceiling, listening to the old house sigh and shift around me. And 3 days later, on a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was the investigator assigned to my case, her voice calm but heavy. She asked if I was sitting down, and I eased myself into a chair at the kitchen table. She told me they had been digging into my daughter's recent behavior, her finances, her messages, the people around her. Then she asked if I knew she was involved with a man named Adrian Wolf. The name rang faintly familiar, something she had mentioned in passing, like you mention a coworker you barely know. I told her I had never met him. She paused and then told me Adrian Wolf had a criminal history out west, fraud cases, elder exploitation. He had served time after convincing an older woman to sign over control of her finances, then emptying her accounts, nearly $200,000. My hands began to tremble as she continued, explaining that records showed my life insurance beneficiary had been altered months earlier, my other child removed entirely, my daughter listed as sole recipient for the full amount. I told her I had never signed anything, and she said they believed me. The signature did not match mine, someone had forged it. Then she said something worse, that there were inquiries made about declaring me legally unfit to manage my own affairs. The phrase hit me like a blow to the chest. Unfit on what basis? She said that was what they needed to uncover, and that if we were going to stop it, we needed proof of intent. She laid out a plan that chilled me. I was to continue using the tablet as if nothing was wrong, let them think their monitoring was successful, say the things they wanted to hear, create the image of a man losing his grip. When I asked if that meant spying on my own child, she replied quietly that it meant saving myself before everything was taken. That night I sat alone in the living room, the tablet resting in my hands returned to me, now altered, so the Watchers were being watched. I spoke aloud into the empty space about how the house felt too big, how I might sell, downsize, how my memory was slipping, how maybe I needed help. Every word tasted bitter because none of it was true, but I was building a role, the helpless aging parent, and the reaction came quickly. My daughter called the next morning, her voice light, concerned, rehearsed. I told her I was tired, confused, unsure. She suggested we finally talk about options, offered to come by, help organize things, and I agreed. Then called the investigator and reported every word. She arrived that weekend carrying folders and that same careful smile, spreading documents across the table, brochures for assisted living, legal forms, power of attorney paperwork. She said it was just a precaution. I repeated the words slowly as if I did not understand, watching her face, watching the expectation in her eyes. This was the child I had raised, the person I had trusted, and she was trying to erase me with signatures. After she left, I photographed everything, sent it off, then went into the basement to the filing cabinet my late wife had kept immaculate. I searched through records until I found a folder that did not belong, unlabeled, shoved between old bills. Inside were forms already filled out describing symptoms I never had: confusion, memory loss, inability to manage daily life, petitions for guardianship with my name typed neatly, and financial summaries of everything I owned, and at the bottom a handwritten note I knew instantly, the handwriting I had seen for decades. It read like a checklist: stages, dates, plans, establish, confusion, secure, authority, move for control, sell the house, and a final line saying he wanted it done faster. His health is stable, window closing. That was the initial. Victor, the man she was involved with, the convicted con artist. My own child had drafted a careful step-by-step outline to wipe me out. I was no longer standing in the basement then. I was back in our old backyard decades earlier, the grill smoking, the air thick with summer, and my daughter Claire standing beside me, home from her first year of college, doubt written all over her face. She had said, "Dad, I don't think I belong there. Everyone seems sharper than me," and I had pulled her close, told her she had earned her place, that no one had the right to make her feel small. She had leaned into me and said she didn't know what she would do without me, and I had promised she never would. Then the memory collapsed and I was back underground, clutching proof that the woman I raised intended to dismantle my life. I gathered the papers, methodically photographed every page, and called the investigator, telling her I had found the entire blueprint, dates, stages, intentions, everything. The following weeks dragged by as authorities quietly tightened the net, tracking messages, building evidence, while I kept acting the part of the fading, confused father, the easy mark. My daughter visited again and again, each time more insistent, asking about my money, my doctors, my future, remarking that I seemed forgetful, worn down, and I played along, nodded, agreed, said maybe it was time to let someone else take over. Her eyes gleamed. She talked about lawyers, paperwork taking the weight off me. She suggested a meeting soon and I agreed, even thanked her. She hugged me longer than usual, told me it was for my own good, and drove away, leaving nothing but cold behind. That night the investigator sent me a recording, intercepted legally, voices clear enough to understand, my daughter saying I would sign soon, and the man replying smoothly, outlining the next steps: guardianship, control, liquidation, mentioning figures, the house, the investments, even the insurance. Later her voice wavered, saying I was her father, and his answer was simple: debts erased, a new beginning, all for a few signatures, dismissing me as old and clueless. The audio ended and I sat alone, realizing she had never told me she was drowning financially, that her business was failing, that she was desperate. Would I have helped if she had asked without hesitation? But she chose theft over trust. The following week I drove to the law office, calm, steady, my daughter waiting, smiling. Inside the small firm, a suited attorney laid out documents designed to hand over a human life, and when the pen was placed in my hand I stopped and asked questions, real ones, about forged signatures, criminal partners, and secret plans. The color drained from her face before she could respond. Officers entered and she was arrested. She cried, pleaded, called me dad, said she was scared and manipulated, said she never meant to hurt me, and as they led her away I told her the truth, that my daughter would have asked for help, not turned me into prey. The man she was with was caught that same day trying to flee, his bags packed. The scheme unraveled over months, revealing a pattern of targeting families through romantic leverage. My child was not his first accomplice, only the latest. She owed him hundreds of thousands, hidden debts, gambling, lies. The trial came, and when I could not watch her be judged, he went to prison. She received probation, restitution, and a record that will never leave her. I cut contact, changed everything: beneficiaries, passwords, security. My son came to visit later. We talked quietly about how desperation and manipulation do not excuse betrayal. I admitted I missed who I thought she was, not who she became. Now I live quietly, no gifts, no surprises. The house still holds my wife's presence, the roses still bloom. Some mornings I forget for a moment, then remember and carry on. I tell this not for pity but as a warning: this kind of betrayal is growing, often committed by family. Pay attention to sudden generosity, to probing questions, About your money to comments about your memory. Never sign what you don't understand. Trust your instincts and ask for help. Isolation is how predators. When I lost a daughter but I kept my freedom, and that has to be enough. Sometimes the danger comes wrapped as love, handed to you by someone who calls you father.